All right. Well, we'll get started here. My name is Justin Peterson. I'm the CEO of Cinder, also the owner. I started in 2014 with the original licenses, and started with one store with a business partner, and now I've acquired all three. Yeah, we have grown to three stores here in Washington State. We're based in Spokane. We also have two stores that we just recently opened in New Mexico, as well as a manufacturing facility. We've had a lot of ups and downs in this industry, but over the years, it's been a great experience. So with this today, we're going to be talking about forming an LLC, some of the information based on that, some of the information based on lease and signing up for lease with locations, and some of the pitfalls to avoid, and some of the things to do with forming an LLC. I have with me Lisa Dickinson, an attorney, and she has been my attorney for several years now. And she's also going to be, helping us with any questions that we have on that. So yeah, with that, Lisa, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Lisa Dickinson, and I've been practicing business law for over 20 years, actually, but in the cannabis space since our state bar allowed us to. So they still only allow us to give legal advice under the umbrella of advising all clients. It's still federally illegal. So that's our first disclaimer we have to give when speaking to any cannabis clients. And Justin's kind of laughing because I'm sure the first time you came into my office, I had to start with that. But I represent, excuse me, retail stores, producer, processors, anyone kind of related to the industry, as well as other business types. So hopefully I'll be of some help discussing the entity formation and leasing and just kind of pitfalls to look out for when starting your business.
Yeah, that's great. And if anybody is looking for an attorney, if they don't already have one, I highly recommend Lisa. Like I said, I've worked with her for many years.
But happy to speak with new people. I really like getting new businesses off the ground and helping them with things that they might not even see as issues when they're starting out. So I'm happy to speak with people about that.
That's great. Yeah, and especially if you ever have questions, like if it's like oh, should I on this, or if you've been on the fence about something, always recommend asking an attorney beforehand, because it can't hurt to make sure before making that decision and finding out later that it might have been the wrong one. We're going to start with lease structures. There are a couple different types of lease structures out there. There's triple net, there's gross modified lease. There's also just gross lease. Probably not going to see too many of those, but that you may come across that, but we won't discuss that today because it isn't very common. But triple net and is probably going to be your most common that you see. Triple net usually especially if somebody has multiple properties, it covers the common area maintenance. It covers the taxes for the building, as well as the insurance for the property. And basically, the owner of the building passes that on to you. And it's usually the most common type that I've seen in this industry, that you'll see, and most common in the commercial industry. Gross modified means that you pay typically one of those, sometimes two, but the owner of the building will take the brunt of the other fees on that. You do see those occasionally, but not as common again as a triple net. So when looking for them, definitely ask what type of lease it is. It's very important to know the differences, because if somebody says it's $12 a square foot per year, you got to ask if there are the CAM fees or the triple net fees on top of that. So that could add another $1 to every square foot per year, or that could add another $6 per square foot per year. So it may sound cheap at first, but once they add those triple net fees on there, it can really raise those fees quite drastically. So definitely keep that in mind, especially when you're budgeting for rent. Sometimes what you'll see with leases is you'll see people come through and see, oh, cannabis, and they'll raise the rent significantly with what they may have marketed. I haven't seen it too much anymore. It definitely was something that was pretty common in the early days. There are still some people who refuse to get entangled with cannabis. It's again not as common anymore, but you do see that from time to time. With that, I do start with that you are in the cannabis industry, and it usually will make things go a lot smoother if they know that beforehand. So at least you can get your answer, and not waste your time or their time up front. But yeah, definitely ask about the different leases, what type of lease it is. If you have a realtor, which I highly recommend doing, a commercial realtor, I would definitely recommend talking to them about what type of leases they have and the properties available. Now, obviously, you have to look into the square footage requirement or the footage requirements for your restricted distances. Sometimes the cities in the locations that you're looking at will actually have a map of where it's allowed that will actually speed things up for you. So definitely check with the city, whatever city you're going through, to see if they have that map. Even counties may even have that. Spokane, I believe, has that. I know the city of Spokane has a map that does that. But other cities, I believe Seattle has a map that does that. And so it will really help you narrow that down and not waste everyone's time or yourself in finding those locations. So having a good realtor, especially one with cannabis background, will really speed this process up if you haven't already got a location. But that is a requirement that you need for your license, and signing that up beforehand and knowing these different fees and what requirements there are for insurance and what they require over what the state requires is also very important. Lisa, do you have anything you want to say about looking out for leases or anything like that?
Yeah, just briefly, and some of it's on the next page as well. But when you talk about the triple net and they say you're going to share in the cost, I would always ask for examples of what the general fees have been. So if you look at a prior tenant, what was their minimum and maximum? Just so you have an idea of it. Sometimes you can negotiate things like not to exceed. It depends if it's a shared suite, like let's say there's 5 different businesses in a kind of building in a strip mall type of thing. Are they including the other 5 buildings? So if you have like a coffee shop next door, are they using more water and you're splitting it equally, 5 ways for the 5 suites? So you kind of need to look at who you're sharing with, what's the general fee. If someone vacates, are the other 4 sharing it? Just issues like that. So things that a commercial realtor may not tell you are things like that, because obviously their financial interest is to get you in a lease. A lot of them will take a percentage. So on one hand, they're valuable because of their knowledge. And like Justin said, the right one. So someone with some cannabis knowledge. LCB usually will not help you. So if you're awarded a license in a county that has a lot of restrictions as far as area, you need to do that legwork generally yourself. So maybe a realtor can help with that, saying, oh, you're within 1,000 feet of whatever you're not supposed to be. But that's really on you to look at those maps and determine whether it's allowed in that area.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, at the end of the day, always double check with the LCB on this. Yeah, it's very important to double check with them because again, even though the realtor may say it, or the city may say it, the state may have its own requirements, or vice versa. If the state says, yeah, that location's fine, if the local laws are different than the state laws, they may say, yeah, you can get a state license, but you can't get a city license, and that's going to prevent you from opening your business and running it legally. Yeah, so I would definitely suggest looking into that. Every city may have different rules depending on where you're trying to go, or the county may have different rules. So it's checking each level of the government to make sure that you're okay to proceed with that. And I always say double check before you sign that lease, before you do anything. All right. So tenant rights. So again, as we kind of touched on the triple net, cost versus convenience on that. Yeah, again, ask what those fees are. As Lisa said, if you can get examples of the previous years, a lot of them will already have that on file, as long as it's not the beginning of a year. But yeah, checking that out and asking them to have an example, see what the average fees are. Everyone will tell you what they are right beforehand, and so that'll give you a good estimate on what to expect. But yeah, it's best to ask for that beforehand. There is some convenience with that. Usually if it's a multi-tenant building, unless they have separately metered units for water, sewer, those will be all covered under that triple net, so you don't have to pay for that extra. Garbage is, again, on a multi-tenant building is included typically. If you are leasing a single building with no other tenants in the building, you will have to pay for garbage. You'll have to pay for water and sewer as well. So those are all things that you have to consider with doing this as well. As we're kind of seeing with personal guarantees on that, almost every single person or every single business will ask for a personal guarantee. With that, you will be asked to sign over on that, and I'll give Lisa here a second to kind of comment on that, but you'll be asked to sign something saying that you're personally liable if something happens to your business to continue those payments for that lease, or responsibility for the property if something were to happen to the business and it was not able to cover that. That's almost guaranteed that you'll have to sign that. Some places don't, but it's more often than not that you will see that. Lisa, do you have any comments on personal guarantees on that?
Yeah, I guess some of the owners are surprised about it. And like you said, so most landlords will require it, especially most of the commercial ones, unless you have someone who owns a private building who's willing to lease to you without one. Obviously, it's best to not have one if you're the tenant. But like Justin said, you are personally liable on the entire lease for the entire term if you sign a personal guarantee. And it's a little more dangerous in the commercial setting because you don't have the protections like a tenant would that you may be used to if you're leasing an apartment. So those are kind of the pitfalls. And the other thing I was going to mention when we talked about the triple net and gross modified lease, the unsophisticated landlord isn't going to speak that language. So you'll just need to read the lease. So if you ask them, they might not know, or they might tell you the wrong thing. You need to read the lease and see exactly what's included and what's not, because it may specify. And if it's vague, don't hesitate to make them clarify it.
That's great. Yeah, and definitely consider that in your lease. And again, if you have any question about your lease, even before you sign a lease, I highly recommend you ask an attorney to look it over just to make sure. Sometimes some building owners will throw in some interesting things into that lease, and always double check that. And an attorney will notice that. But have them take a look, make sure there's nothing unusual in that lease. With personal guarantees, also make sure I would suggest having the ability to reassign that in the case that you do sell or something happens, you need to sublease it to someone else. So definitely have that ability if that is possible. So asking about the ability to reassign the lease to someone else as well as the personal guarantee. The terms of the lease, again, discussing on how long the lease is for. The most building owners want as long as lease as possible. On average, I own a couple commercial buildings myself. I ask, try to get 5 years at minimum. Very rarely will you see less than that. You will sometimes see people do 3 years, but it's not very common. With that, most lease places are going to ask for 7 to 10 years. You're just gonna have to go with how important you feel like that space is to you, how long you feel like you want to stay in that space. If you feel like you're going to expand quickly, and let's hope that that's the case, you want to make sure that that's something you need to consider. Will you want to be there for 7 years? Will you want to be there for 10 years? And then the terms of the lease as well with that is, do you have renewals? So with those renewals are at the end of that 7 years, do you have the ability to lease it again for another 7 years or another 10 years or however long the lease term is for? So asking about that is also very important. I always try to get 2 more renewals myself just to make sure. And then with those terms in there are the increase in rate every year. So a lot of places will ask for another 2 or 3% every year. And so asking about what the increase is very important as well. That can make or break you if you don't catch that part, or they put on 10% after the first renewal. So just definitely keep those in mind if you plan on staying in that location longer than 1 term. Cancelability if license is not acquired. I highly suggest putting in a clause in there saying that if you are unable to acquire a license from both the state and the city, or just say all governing bodies for your business, that you have the ability to exit the lease. I have heard of some stories on both sides where you get in there and everything's looking great, and then you get to one governing body and they turn around and say, sorry, it's not going to work for whatever reason. And there's no way out of that, and it's just not going to work out. You need the ability to pull out from that lease if that were to happen. I strongly suggest this one. Almost everyone seems to be okay with that. There usually will be a fee in there, whether that fee is just their attorney fees and their time, whether that's a flat rate, it can vary, but definitely ask about that beforehand. I had a location that I had out here in Spokane Valley, our first location, that everything went really smoothly until the last minute, where the city said, no, we're not going to do that for some unknown reason. So I actually had to exit out at least. It cost me a couple $1,000, but it was significantly cheaper than paying the entire term of that lease. So that worked out in the end. And there are also times where people have not put this in. I've heard of a story that happened in the initial lease when licenses were being granted, where someone signed a 10-year lease. They did not put that in there, and they did not get a license at all. So they were now on the hook with a personal guarantee of paying for something for 10 years. So unless there's that sublease clause in there, he was now stuck with the payment of that, and it would cost a large sum of money to get out of that if they're even willing to do that. Lisa, do you have anything else to say about it on this page?
Yeah, I was just smiling about it, called tenant rights, because it's kind of like tenant beware. But definitely, as far as the ability to sublease or reassign. So if you sell your business, you don't want to be on the hook for a 10-year lease with someone else owning it and paying the rent. Usually what they'll do, and that's why you kind of do want either a sophisticated landlord or someone that's willing to allow you to hire your attorney to draft things, because a lot of things are negotiated. Like, they may say, sure, but it has to be an acceptable new tenant to us, and you have to pay X dollars for us to investigate the new personal guarantor, or we're not going to let you off it. So those are kind of the things, the nuances that I see clients signing stuff and they come to you later and say, how do I get out of it? Well, it's too late. You can't. Like the example that Justin gave about, well, I never got my license. Am I stuck in this lease? Generally, yes. The difficult part is LCB, once you get your ticket and they say, oh, you get a license, but you have to show us these things first, show us a lease. And so you rush around getting a lease and whatnot, and you don't look out for these things before you get to that stage. So that's kind of the timeline, as people are rushed and you want your license and you're afraid that LCB is going to, you have a deadline. You need to have someone at hand, if you can't figure it out, to put in those clauses about cancelability, because, as an attorney, people will email me one day and say, hey, I need an attorney to look at a lease. Well, that's not how it works. You should probably have one on hand, and they're going to want you to pay them first and do a conflict check and determine if they want you as a client. They're not just going to, quote, look at a lease, tell you it's okay, and be done with you. So having those ducks in a row and having things lined up prior to LCB saying, hey, give us your lease, and you're racing around trying to find space and not thinking about, can I cancel if I don't get all my licensing with the city, state, county, whatever. So those are things that hopefully it will not take you by surprise when you get to that stage, because if they do, you're stuck in the conundrum of, well, I don't have an attorney yet, and I think it looks okay, so I'll just sign it and deal with it later. You definitely don't want to do that. So those are kind of the pitfalls that people aren't aware of, and they're so excited they're getting a license, they just sign a lease and want to deal with these things later. But that's what I see a lot of, is it's too late by the time they do seek help and look into these things. So definitely be aware of those prior to signing.
Yeah, that's very, very good advice. Yeah, I highly recommend having that attorney beforehand, because the last thing you want to do is be ready to sign, or they have other offers on the table and you lose that property because you didn't have all your ducks in a row beforehand. So definitely consider that be right off the bat. Let's kind of go into the LLC formation. I'm going to work with Lisa here and probably hand it over more towards her on this, as this is more in her wheelhouse. I have set up a couple LLCs myself, but again, I always partner with Lisa beforehand. I tried doing it at first by myself, and let me tell you, it was not great, and Lisa probably can attest to that. But I highly don't recommend doing these online, Rocket Lawyers or any of those things. Are incredibly generic. They are not designed for cannabis. Having an actual attorney who understands this and can specifically tailor these to you are what I highly recommend for this. So Lisa, do you want to kind of comment on?
Sure. I don't reveal client confidences, but I'll say that, especially in Washington, when it first started, most people did form their own entity because lawyers would not do it for them because of the illegality in our ethics rules. Most lawyers were skittish about helping. So most entities were already formed, and we had to do a lot of cleanup for people. I will say some people, just because of cost, will do their own. I don't suggest it, because if you don't have enough to form an LLC properly, you probably don't have enough to co-sign for a lease for 5 years and worry about the other things that are going to come up in your business. But a lot of people just try to save a couple grand, or, use the legal Zoom, and it will make an LLC for you, but the problem comes up later. So one of the pitfalls I see when people do their own is they just put their address, their home address, because they don't know. And you can never get rid of that. So once you filed it online, for eternity, everyone can know where you live. People don't think about those things. They just form their entity, no big deal. Management issues, member or manager. Washington, now you list governors, so who the governing people are. Well, a lot of times people haven't thought this through, and especially I've seen it with these social equity licenses, is they're looking for one human that qualifies as a social equity candidate and one that maybe has experience running a business. And so they just put together their LLC without seeing an attorney, and they didn't discuss the structure. They didn't discuss member managed, manager managed, that they basically, if they just put they're both governors, they basically married each other. And that's how I see it. I call it the business marriage, right? It's easier to get rid of a spouse than a business partner. You may end up paying them 50% forever if they do nothing with you ever again or give you money. So, those are the pitfalls in forming your own LLC, is thinking about those considerations before you just hurry up and form it. It says difference between store manager and LLC manager. People don't really understand that LLC structures are either manager managed or member managed. And an LLC manager is different than like your store manager and what they have authority to do. So it's kind of part of a larger conversation, but without even knowing those LLC basics, as you probably know, it's very simple to form your own. You go online, what's your name? What's your address? Who are your governors? So you think everything's great. And then you didn't have an operating agreement to talk about how you're governed, how disputes are handled, if somebody wants to leave. So that's if more than one member. I think even if one member, you should probably do it right. But I understand budgets and starting a business. A lot of people do their own. But definitely with two people, like I said, it's like you're marrying them, or 4 people or 3 people. You need to look at the legal rights and responsibilities. In Washington, there's community property issues to look at. So what if one of your partners passes away? Are you partners with their spouse? In cannabis, that's even more difficult because the qualifications and things like that. So you probably do want to spend the money and think of those nuances as, how would you get rid of someone? What if someone passes away? And people say, oh, I'll deal with this later. Once it's formed, if you don't have that already kind of in writing, I'll say most of the legal disputes are between business partners. So again, those are things you probably want to have your ducks in a row prior to forming the entity.
Yeah, that's very valid, and I know you can't comment on them, but there are the number one thing I always hear in this industry is someone suing someone else because of a bad business deal, or they're not working together anymore, or someone did something, and it's almost always different LLC members together suing each other because of something. Again, as Lisa said, they forgot to do it in the beginning, and they can't agree on it. And when you have 50-50 ownership, nobody's really in charge of the other unless one's a manager and one's a member. And there's still other legal pitfalls with that, but it is something to definitely consider beforehand.
Like Justin said, most of the litigation is between 2 business partners. If somebody just quits working altogether, but they're 50% owner, you can't just divorce them and get rid of them. Well, you could sue them, but that's a lot of money. So it's better paying a couple grand in the beginning to work out these things and try to have a filler in place if something happens, rather than spend, I'd say, quite a bit having to sue them later.
That's so
Considerably
true.
more.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, why not spend the extra $1,000 or $2,000 now? Then worry about the let's just be honest, minimum $10,000-$20,000. And there's some of these ones that go on for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And yeah, you may win in the end, but it's cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to get to that. And
I will say that too, in a business dispute, and people don't realize it because they hear about other types of law. If you're business partners, you generally don't get your attorney's fees back. So like Justin said, you might win, but it cost you 50 grand. you don't get to charge the other person 50 grand generally, unless it's like a contract dispute that says the winner gets their attorney's fees paid. And you'd still have to collect them from, I call it the deadbeat partner that probably just ran away and doesn't work anymore. So you're footing that out of your pocket if you do get into litigation generally.
Yeah. And so, yeah, is it worth it in the end to have not to have missed that one small detail? Probably not. Talking about trademark formation in Washington State, obviously we cannot get a federal trademark, but if they have a business only here in Washington State, what would it look like to acquire something like that?
So without getting too much into it, as we know, it's federally illegal, and that's why you can't have a federal trademark at this point. Obviously, there's some loopholes at other management companies, and there's tricks of the trade to kind of go around some of that. But for a general cannabis business, you cannot get a federal trademark, is the bottom line. Washington, because marijuana is state legal, you can apply for and usually obtain a trademark. It's based on a lot of different things, but date of first use. So it says that here. And so I don't want to get into too much, but I think it's one of those things that if you feel like you have a trademark on a certain name, whether that's your business name, or if you're a producer processor, it'd be like a certain strain or something. There's nuances you'd want to probably talk to an attorney. You can try it yourself. The Secretary of State runs the trademark division as well. And so you can kind of poke around on there, see what trademarks are there. But there are nuances too. Sometimes the cost benefit of just trying to get a Washington trademark without doing like a federal trademark search, because someone with a federal trademark that is similar to yours, but not for cannabis, can also still sue you. So a lot of it is, on one hand, it's maybe go for it, try it out, but realize the pitfalls are someone federally may sue you because they own a skateboard company named Cinder or something, right? So without spending too much looking to the whole universe to see what trademarks are out there, how much do you spend to do that search or due diligence beforehand? Mm-hmm. And then samples of use depends what type. If you're getting the trademark for business and advertising, there's specific samples you should use versus a clothing trademark in Washington.
So store compliance, and I feel like there's anything you'd like to comment on with this as well. Store compliance with that, there is I heavily recommend reading the laws, or even just asking the LCB to comment on this, but they'll just give you the laws anyways on rules for signage, security, limited access areas, ID checking with proper equipment and training, LCB relations, and proper packaging requirements. This is very important that you follow this, because this is all things they will check, whether or not be at the initial review of the property before you even open up, but they will also get comments from the public or other people just saying, hey, it looks like their signage is too big, or the security is too lax, or something like that. So definitely read these laws and make sure that you follow these to a T, because you will be fined for these. And you will get in trouble for these. These are things that they just really don't mess around with. With signage, there are rules on the size requirements for that, as well as where the signage can be placed, how many signs you can have. So definitely keeping up to date with that. They are looking at changing laws all the time, but obviously things take time, and whether or not they pass are two different things. So definitely checking the current laws on signage is very important before you pay for a sign, and then find out after the fact it's not the right size, or you got too small or too large. Security is very important. If you are in an area where you are worried about theft or being robbed, I would highly recommend looking into security options and following up with the state on that, on what the rules are for that. They do have rules on what you can do for security, whether they can be armed or not, who can be armed. And then the federal laws are different on that too. So you have to be really careful about what that looks like. And how it can be handled with that. So if you are worried about security, I definitely recommend looking into that, whether it's a third party or someone that you want to hire yourself. And it is somebody that you hire yourself, you do want to make sure you let your insurance company know that you have a security guard. And if it is something that you choose to have as someone who is armed, if that is something that the state does allow, or that's your choice on that, making sure that you talk to your insurance about that, because that is something that they need to know beforehand. If you don't clarify that beforehand, you can lose your insurance on that. Limited access areas. So that's one of the requirements they have on the layout when you submit that of the store. So once you already have your building and your location, you need to map out certain areas and what will be limited access areas. That will be places where staff can only go. The most basic option that they have is that you have a log sheet about who goes back there and when. So you just keep a log sheet of that. Some companies choose to go into the RFID system. With that is like a badge or a token or something along those lines to unlock doors, and then it keeps a digital tracking of that. That's also a little easier to manage than having to keep massive logs. But you get a little more in the expensive range because you have to worry about door locks and RFID readers and key cards and such. ID checking with proper equipment and training. There are several different hardware manufacturers out there that will do ID checks. They will scan the badge, or you can swipe for certain IDs. And making sure that that person is again 21 or older. These systems are usually pretty advanced. They check with the database. They read the barcode on the backs, and they usually update themselves when there's new IDs that have been released. Checking for those IDs and making sure that they're not fake or expired is very important. The state may do a sting. They have been known to do stings. We have been stung on these where they come through and they bring someone underage and they check for those IDs. And if you miss that, that person and who served them can be charged with a felony for that, for selling to a minor. So making sure that you train your employees with that is incredibly important, and you will be fined for that as well. There's no way out of that one. It's a fine, and it's a mark on your license. So you definitely want to make sure you're on top of that. LCB relations, obviously very important. Getting to know your enforcement officer is very important with that. Knowing who that person is, having their phone number on hand, their email address, so you can ask questions, and if they don't know the answer or are unable to help, they'll direct to the person that can. And it's always good because they can let you know about your inspections. They can let you know what to expect or if any rule changes are. So making sure you have a good relationship with your enforcement officer is very important. And the people we've worked with over the years have just been fantastic, and they're very understanding. They've been great about explaining any rule changes or giving us a heads up beforehand. Hey, they're changing this law. You need to keep an eye on it, whether that's loosening it, which doesn't really happen that often, or tightening it. So it's really making sure that you have that good relation. And then the proper packaging requirements. It's kind of a catch-22 on those, where the manufacturers are the producer processors are kind of in charge of making sure their packaging is a requirement. But if you knowingly sell one that isn't packaged correctly, you would be fined for that as well. So making sure that you aren't repackaging things that's not in your wheelhouse if you're a retailer, and making sure that the packaging is approved by the LCB. If they've been around for a long time, they've most likely been through the whole thing about getting these approved. But if there's a new packaging style that comes out and they just start packaging in that and they haven't checked with the LCB may have a rule on that saying that kind can't be used, or maybe they change the rules on it and they no longer can use that type. So really making sure you're on top of that as well. If you ever have questions, again, ask an LCB officer and just ask. They're almost all the time very, very happy to just say, yes, that's fine, or no, but I can, or let me look into it. I don't know for sure. So they're very good about asking that. And again, always good to ask beforehand, then ask for forgiveness, because asking for forgiveness usually ends with a fine. Lisa, do you have any comments on this page?
Yeah, I'll call this the self-help slide. So, like you said, people need to know what the laws are, but the best way to, if there's like kind of an on the edge question, is to have a good relationship with the LCB officer, because they have a lot of discretion in certain things. If the rules are not totally clear, they can decide whether to cite you or not. So it is best to ask them, hey, is this sign, we had a question about this picture on it. Is that going to be okay? Ask them. The reason I call it self-help, don't ask your attorney. I don't know. Okay. Like I can read the rule too. So can you, right? It's not always clear. It may say no, picture appealing to minors. I'm not the decision maker. Your LCB person is. So these are the self-help. Try to figure out yourself. Ask your LCB officer. If you disagree, then you might ask an attorney and say, well, I think we're in compliance, but LCB says we're not. Problem is, it's their discretion most of the time. So if you do get cited, that's when you might want to seek the help of an attorney to say, hey, no, I think we are totally following because I read the rule, says that we can do this. I think we can do this. We got cited. Now what do we do? So it's administrative law. LCB gets to make their own rules and enforce them. If you do get cited and you think they're wrong, you can appeal those things to an administrative law court. So that's when you would get an attorney involved. But up to that point, it's on you to know the rules, talk to your LCB officer to see if they agree that you're okay, and make sure your employees are educated to follow these rules. Because it's on you if they don't. Like your social media person puts up an ad that's illegal, it's your problem, not theirs, it's your problem. So that's the self-help. Make sure your employees know this, make sure you know this, and talk to your LCB officer.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, again, save yourself some time. Just ask the LCB officer first. And if they don't know for sure, hey, that's okay. Maybe you need to talk to your attorney about something. But again, LCB is always, as Lisa said, the governing authority on that. So asking them is the first step. Market entrance legality. What are some of the most common legal issues you see with retail shops dealing with? So this is kind of more towards Lisa on this. If you'd like to, feel free to comment on what you feel like the most common things that you see with with cannabis retail shops.
100% employee issues. I'll tell you that. It's just like a normal business, right? So, like I said, I've been doing business law long before cannabis because it wasn't legal for attorneys to do so until after it was legal in Washington. Other than employee issues as an owner, it would be partnership disputes. They're just not doing what they said they'd do, didn't put in the money, you want to get rid of them, they ran away. But the day-to-day is the employee issues and just general, like, do you have an employee handbook? Do you have policies and procedures in place? People are always taking vacation, sick time, or not showing up, and can you fire them or not? So having those policies and things in place, or a handbook, and you can change those things at will. You're the employer, but you do need to have policies and procedures and rules, like how many times can you call in sick, things like that, attendance. So that's the majority of it. We just talked about licensing and advertising violations. Fix it first yourself, because your attorney can't know everything, right? So I can't come to your store and look at it and go, I think that sign's wrong. Until there's an issue, there's not an issue. So again, you need to, as boring as it is, read all their rules and what's allowed and what's not. And a lot of those things, like Justin was saying, like the key card entry, how you implement that, that's your choice. But again, that still goes to employee issues. Some employees not following the rules. They didn't card someone. What do they do when a tribal ID comes in and it didn't scan? Have you looked at the Washington handbook on tribal IDs, right? So a lot of those things, it is on you to educate yourself and figure out, but where you would need legal help, contracting, I guess, with other entities, leasing issues, we talked about that, but employee issues are going to be your day-to-day questions. And again, like I said, if you were to call my office and you're not an ongoing client and you have a quick question about, should I fire this person? I can't answer that. You'd need to do the intake, the conflict check, the whole shebang. So it is better to have somebody on hand to discuss those things prior to having it come up like a surprise. Oh, and the silent partners, that's part of the, your partner dispute. Someone says, well, I want a future ownership interest, but I can't be yet because XYZ. Just don't. But if you do, because people do, it's hard to get out of later. So promising people or letting a manager from your business, not an LLC manager, talk to the press and say, well, I'm kind of an owner. They might not be, but they'll try to get you later and say, well, he promised me ownership or whatnot. So avoid silent partners like the plague. There's so many people in this industry who are like, well, I'll just give you some money under the table and then you'll like give me 10% later, right? Avoid, 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 avoid. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely possibilities of people moving money around, but again, as you said, under the table deals. Those will come back to bite you in the ass. Definitely don't look into those and make it as legit as possible. And the other thing the LCB has is the ability to look through your finances. They can comb through them and they will find that stuff. So if you have things going through like that, they will find out about it. We do hear about it from time to time about somebody doing something that they shouldn't have been doing and they get busted. And then not only that, if you're with tax things, feds can get involved too. It's just not worthwhile. And we're again under a federally illegal business. The last thing you want to do is mess with the feds on that. Um, and the one entity you don't want to mess with on that is definitely the IRS. So, keeping those partners as legit as possible. If you do have someone who wants to invest in that, make sure they go through the correct process. Make sure that you do the whole background check on that. Again, as Lisa shared multiple times, if that is something you want to do, make sure there's somebody you do want to get quote unquote married to, because you are essentially legally getting married with them in a business sense. And it's going to be a very difficult process to remove them if they're not willing. So definitely keep those things in mind. So Lisa, did you want to talk about like the common legal pitfalls to avoid here?
Sure, I think we talked about most of these. So forming your entity, buyer beware. You save a few grand and you may have problems. And I'm not to say that if you do form it with an attorney, it's perfect the first time either, because these things evolve. So you may not foresee certain things that may come up, but at least they will see things that you may not think of before. So they'll at least point to things like, have you thought about what if someone dies? Have you thought about what if somebody gets married? Because as we know in Washington, it's community property law, right? So the same with doing your own op agreement, that is the main problem with your entity if you do it yourself. And then the accountant issues, as Justin's touched on, tax is a big deal. You need to figure out how you want to be taxed before you really get started. Having an accountant on hand to ask questions to, especially in this industry, is very important because, there's specific tax issues to cannabis businesses that aren't the same as if you had owned another business before. It's not always the same. So having an accountant who's well-versed in cannabis is also very important. And again, the partnership issues, like I said, other than employee issues, that's your next problem, is the person that you chose to business marry. Happens all the time. What if they end up filing bankruptcy? Now what? Putting in more money. Do you know their financial situation? Which one of you two is going to personally guarantee things, or both of you probably have to. So you are financially basically marrying these people when you're personally guaranteeing contracts, leases. I don't know if your POS makes you personally guarantee, but just other vendors sometimes will have you signing personal guarantees. So those are all things to think about. I hate to be the scary person. I was like, watch out for all these things. But the best part about starting your business is it's yours and you get to plan how you want things to happen. So just having the right advisors in place to kind of touch base and ask questions as you go along is probably pretty helpful.
Yeah. And the one thing that I hear the most about is people with partners is that, hey, you might be best friends for your entire life, or you may have known each other for years, or family, or things like that. But once the money starts coming in, if you are successful, people change. And it can drastically change a relationship with that person if someone starts getting selfish or is unwilling to do things, and it can literally rip apart your business. So just really keeping that in mind. And obviously that's your decision on how you want to do it. But yeah, just keeping that in mind, that can be a major issue. And again, that leads into the partnership legal disputes that happen. It will happen if that does happen. So definitely keep those things in mind. I think at this point we just kind of want to open it up to any questions. If anybody has any, we'd love to answer anything that you have. Again, Lisa won't be able to answer really specific legal questions. But yeah, if you guys have any general questions or anything to follow up on, please let me know.
I was just wondering, what's your background and like where are you at currently, and what are you currently doing, Justin? And also for Lisa.
Yeah. So I was one of the original licensees for retail here in Washington State. I started with one store with a business partner. Again, talking about business partners. Thankfully, my partnership was a good experience. But he eventually wanted out. I acquired his other two stores that he had. So we currently have 3 stores here in the Spokane area. And I've been doing this for, gosh, almost 9 years now. And now we've expanded into New Mexico. We're looking into other opportunities as well. It's been quite a ride and a huge learning experience, and I'm always learning new things. It doesn't end, but it's a invigorating experience. It can be exhausting. Running your own business has its own ups and downs. But it is a fulfilling experience, and I've met a lot of incredible people over the years. and I've worked with some incredible people as well. The team that we've had over the years has just been amazing. So growing this into what it is, and having the opportunity to help again share the knowledge and the struggles that I've had over the years with somebody, so they can hopefully avoid that, would be I would love to have had going into this in the beginning, where again for me at the beginning nobody knew. We were, us in Colorado, the first ones online. We had no idea what we were doing. I knew how to kind of run a business, but besides that, this whole industry is just a new thing. So yeah, that's kind of been my background. Lisa?
So I consider myself a business lawyer, not a cannabis lawyer. And I'll tell you kind of why the distinction. I've done business law for over 20 years. And again, because it's federally illegal, I waited, and most lawyers did, until our state bar ethics council said that we could represent cannabis businesses. I represented ancillary businesses before, such as like medical marijuana clinics, where they would give the doctors and naturopath licenses during the medical marijuana, and other ancillary businesses. I won't go into what those are exactly, but dealt with most of the things we're talking about, like LLC agreements, leasing. And so the caution I have when you look for an attorney, the people who advertise and say, I'm just a cannabis attorney, you question what that means. So is that they used to be a criminal attorney and now they're pivoting into cannabis? Because most of the issues you're going to deal with as a business owner are not criminal issues. So you kind of want to look at their background and see where they came from. Or they're just marketing. They're a new lawyer that says, hey, I'm going to start a cannabis attorney business, and they don't know more than you do. They may help you with getting your license. And so I don't see, when you say I'm a cannabis attorney, what do you do exactly, right? Because like all the things we just talked about are really business law questions. So I'd say be cautious when looking for a legal advisors. What are you looking for? Are you looking for someone to advise you on your business, like employees, leasing, real estate, purchase and sale agreements? I've represented over, I'd say, 50 cannabis businesses in their business dealings, issues, regulatory, licensing, employee issues, real estate. But I still don't say I'm a cannabis attorney. I represent many other types of businesses. So just, it's buyer beware, I guess. Like if you see someone advertising for, hey, I do water heaters, are they the best? Maybe they're good. I don't know. But buyer beware. How long have they been around? What's their background? And what have they done in the past? So that's kind of my history. That's about
Thank you
it.
so much. Hey, Justin, in terms of your stores and your new venture in New Mexico, have you, when you first started, I guess you were leasing, have you turned from leasing a building to owning your buildings, or any moves to own the building and moving locations?
Yeah, that's kind of funny. But yes, yeah, our Valley building here, I bought that from the guy, at least from originally. So I do own that building as well. And then our downtown Spokane location, I own that location as well. And our north location that we have, we do lease that, and we lease it from the same person. When we actually did move locations, and we lease that from the same person on those. They own both buildings. And so, moving locations, it's very expensive. It's also hard because you have to train your customers to go to the new location, and you can lose business and you can gain business from doing that. So just keep that in mind. Moving a business can make or break an entire business. So just being very mindful of that information beforehand, before spending the time and the money to do that. And then there's the whole getting the LCB involved in approving the new location, and then the switch over. They basically flip a switch one night and say, you're at this location tonight, and tomorrow you're at this location. So you have to get everything into that new location before that switch flips. And switch flips, yeah. And so that's something you just got to keep in mind. Moving location is a very difficult process, and I would try to avoid it as best as possible. Obviously, things come up, and there are some chances where this location is just so much better, or your existing landlord does not want to do that anymore. But as for owning your own building, I if you can afford it, or that's the option, I would highly recommend it. Then you own your space, and got one less person to worry about in your life. But there's the financial costs. There's also the banking regulations here in Washington State. There are a couple banks that will work with us. But the requirements for getting a loan through them, if they even approve you, are usually quite high. Some of them require 10, 20, 25% down just to get the loan. And that can be quite expensive, especially as you're just getting started. So just keeping that stuff in mind. But yes, I do recommend that, if you have that ability, do it, because the last thing you want to do is get someone in there who tries to come in and take advantage of you in your space, or try to kick you out because they are friends with a competitor. So you just got to be careful of that stuff. Those are all things you got to keep in mind. But yeah, again, owning your own building prevents that from happening.
I will give a caution about real estate leasebacks. That's when somebody buys your building and tries to lease it back to you. So if you did own it, there are people in the industry, I'd say nationwide, not as much around here, because I think most of Washington folks have tried to avoid it, but where you're cash poor, but you have real estate, they try to lease you your own property back after they take it over. And of course, they want some tie to the cannabis business so they can say they have some ownership in multiple states. So it's kind of a backdoor where you'll get approached by people who have a great deal for you, have some money to offer you, and just want a little piece of your business. So I would caution people against that, because you're going to get it from everywhere that someone wants to, quote, help you. And I wouldn't say it's usually benefiting you. So
Yeah, we've been approached by multiple people with that. It's definitely something like, hey, again, as Lisa said, if you're cash poor and somebody says, hey, I'll pay you $1 million for your building. Well, yeah, that's $1 million you just got. Of course, you'd want that cash. But then they turn around and say, yeah, but we're also going to rent it back to you for $30,000 a month now. And I've heard of some of those going okay. I've also heard of horror stories where they just come through and find everything wrong, or a competitor they'll flip the property after doing that, and they'll turn around and sell that to another company who now wants you out. It may work for you if that's what you want to do. That's obviously your choice, but yeah, again, as Lisa said, it's usually national people, and they know what they're doing, and the deal may sound too good to be true, and it probably is. So it is an option, but again, talk to an attorney, and if that's the route you want to go down, I definitely recommend looking very heavily into all the fine print with that.
When you bought your buildings, when you first started out, was your building, you leased your building first?
Yes.
And then you bought that same building, correct?
Yes.
So then what were they charging you in juice tax from standard square footage for the same building? And then did they carry that kind of same taxation over when you bought them out, or when you bought the building?
Well, this was at a point where I started this with money that I had, and I didn't have a whole bunch of money at that point. And so when I got into it, they were very hesitant, and I went in and I said to them, "Hey, you're at that point, rent 9 years ago was a lot cheaper, and they wanted, I think it was, I don't know, I want to say it was like $8 a square foot at the time." And they were very hesitant about it. They were unsure if they were going to lease to me, but they were open to it, but they were really on the fence. And I just came in and I said, "Hey, what if I paid you more per square foot?" Immediately, obviously, they're like, "Oh, of course, I'd love to do that in that case." And it got me a seat at the table with them, and actually became friends with the guy afterwards. So it worked out in the end. But at the time, I did overpay for the building, not by a large amount, but I did overpay for it.
Like $2, $5,
Oh, what's that?
double bucks.
Oh, it wasn't double bucks. Yeah, it was just it was a couple. Yeah, a couple. I don't know. Like it was. Yeah.
Probably made it like 11 or 12 bucks, or 11 bucks.
The square foot.
Yeah, 11 bucks.
Yeah, at that point, I think it was, like I said, 12. I think I paid $12 a square foot.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and again, Spokane at that point was significantly cheaper.
Yeah.
But nowadays, $12 is unheard of. But yeah, just sometimes that will get people who care more about money than they do about cannabis, or their fears against cannabis, and you throw down money, and that usually opens more doors than it doesn't. And I've also heard of places saying they know they have a hot spot, and they open up bidding sessions for however much people want to throw down, and you'll see people paying triple what the base lease is for this space, because they know it's a good spot, and they're like, "What are you gonna do?" So you just got to keep a mindset of that. But yeah, it's definitely something you got to consider, especially if they know these new rounds of licenses are coming out. People are going to see dollar signs.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Of course. And Jason, I'll send you my phone number with the email here. So if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again, Lisa. And thank you again for everybody. And I hope everybody has a great day.